Every Olympics is a sign of the times. It is a showcase for technology and infrastructure, a convention for journalists, diplomats, and heads of states, a festival for the fittest people on God's green earth. It is, in the best of ways, a carnival of heroic extremes and epic fails. But the women's figure skating games at the 2022 Beijing Olympics were a circus set in a dystopia inspired by the Hunger Games. The sport has always been about blood, sweat, glitter, and tears. But never before has trauma taken such center stage. The team event, really a showdown between the United States and Russia, ended in a definitive Russian victory after teen prodigy Kamila Valieva became the first female skater in history to land a quadruple jump at the Olympics. This came as a surprise to no one, as Valieva was all the glories of Russian figure skating compacted in one teenage body. A ballerina on ice.
She's the chosen one.
A gritty jumping machine.
Find me a free skate that tops that one. I dare you.
And, according to a mistimed bomb of a lab result that was dropped during the middle of the Olympic Games, a doper.
Breaking news overnight.
The 15-year-old Russian skater who had been favored to take home the gold will get an expedited hearing to determine whether she can compete.
The panel considered fundamental principles of fairness, irreparable harm, and the relative balance of interest.
Russian figure skating phenom has been cleared to compete after she tested positive for a banned substance before the Games.
So on February 17th, as part of a tradition older than many democracies and most undead empires, millions around the world gathered and watched a presumably doped-up child fall over and over again. News, posters, banners, and think pieces from all over Russia all but beatified Valieva as the patron saint for the martyrs of Western conspiracies. The free world was aghast.
I was very, very disturbed.
Which is why it took the Court of Arbitration for Sport's 2 sweet years of thorough investigations to ultimately decide to hold the drugged minor, and the drugged minor alone, responsible for the positive results.
Kamila Valieva, who has today received a 4-year ban for doping.
While Valieva seems perfectly cast as the sacrificial lamb, Russian figure skating has been a well-oiled machine for political messaging far before her debut on the international stage. It has a system of rigid hierarchies, and no one moves upward without paying their due. Nobody survives this system without playing their role. Except survival would be an apt descriptor for the viewing experience of the Beijing Olympic figure skating games. One would have to possess a fine-tuned appreciation for human suffering to enjoy the absolute shit show that went down on February 22nd, 2022. Luckily, this is a pre-existing condition in figure skating's truest fans. On January 20th, 2019, a little-known figure skater by the name of Anastasia Shabatova went on Instagram Live to have a chat with her fans. At age 13 and having only achieved minor successes at the junior level in Russia, Nastya had not shown enough promise to warrant preemptive PR training. So when one of her audiences asked her how to perform consistently, she said, "Drink a lot of dope and you perform stably. That's all. You just need to drink the right dope." While Russia has long pioneered innovations in the art of doping, Anastasia accomplished something unprecedented that day. She was candid, something that had never really happened in the history of Russian doping. Shameless denial is the easiest way to avoid social suicide when one is caught in an act of universal dishonor. If you were clever, you might even change the conversation to what honor itself really is. But this was not a failure of intelligence. Anastasia didn't bother at all. Over the course of just 2 sentences, the whole industry of Russian figure skating, which had scarcely escaped the Sochi doping scandal unscathed, suddenly found itself implicated in medical sacrilege, doing scientific experiments on little girls. But to their credit, not a lot of people have caught on to the obvious. Russia, a country that had never produced an Olympic champion in female figure skating since it was still the Soviet Union, had become absolutely unbeatable in just 2 Olympic cycles.
The podium here, in first place from Russia, Kamila Valieva. We knew, she knew. Second place also from Russia. Third also from Russia. A sweep again.
Since Sochi, a musical chair of gorgeous, gorgeous Russian girls has rotated through the international stage, capturing the hearts of fans worldwide. and they all came from one camp in Moscow, Sambo 70. Originally the world's leading academy in mixed martial arts training, Sambo 70 only burst onto the international figure skating stage when teen sensation Yulia Lipnitskaya, produced by its little-known rink Krustalny, led Russia to Team Gold at the Sochi Games. By the end of the next Olympic cycle, the school had collected medals from every international competition and easily took first and second places in Pyeongchang.
That's an Olympic skate in Russia. Patience is not a virtue.
At each game, the girls' faithful attendant, their honored coach, manager, and nutritionist, lurked behind the boards in her Louis Vuitton coat. Eteri Tutberidze produced 2 Olympic champions and 4 medals in the span of 8 years. She is the Grand Dame of Sambo 70. When Anastasia Shabatova went on her little rant, she was asked if the girls at Sambo 70 doped, to which she responded, "Of course they did." This enraged the entire figure skating community in Russia. Sambo 70 represented the best of Russian figure skating. Its dominance fundamentally changed the outlook of the sport.
Look at the arms of the free leg follow through all the way up in the air. Look at the speed on the landing. Into a falling leaf.
Gone were the days when clean lines, deep edges, and fine deportment took precedence over acrobatics. The Russian girls were fast, lean, bombastic, shockingly consistent, and smashing records every season. To imply that the magical ingredient to all of these glorious victories was doping would be treacherous. Even though Shabatova had briefly trained at Sambo 70, she was never invited to join, so her words could be frivolous fabrications motivated by jealousy. She was swiftly disowned by Russian figure skating. If she had been older, more successful, more famous, or more important, her words might have sounded an alarm. But while this whole situation might seem like an obvious garbage fire, it was hard for the insiders to notice because they were used to being gaslit. Eteri went on to win the Best Coach Award from the International Skating Union, but not before giving this interview on meldonium, a medication that Russian athletes used to boost endurance before it was banned by the World Anti-Doping Organization.
Не помогает тебе прыгать выше, сильнее и быстрее, а помогает лишь быстрее восстановиться. То есть на этом мы должны были что-то искать новое, потому что все равно им нужно давать какие-то витамины, которые им будут помогать восстанавливаться от усталости. Да.
The banned medication Valieva claimed to have accidentally ingested coincidentally has similar effects and has been referred to as a metabolic cousin of meldonium. But let's put a pin in that. Back in 2019, Eteri Tutberidze was not just on the path of a meteoric rise. She was set for a hostile takeover. She walked away from Pyeongchang with 2 Olympic medalists at her camp, an arsenal that no other coach in the world could match, yet completely and utterly disposable to Sambo 70. Behold, the quad revolution is here. For the next 3 years, leading to the next Olympics, any top skater would need a triple axel or a quad jump, a feat previously near impossible for women to make the podium next to the Russians.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 full rotations, easily landed.
Quads out of the wazoo, just everywhere. Everyone's trying quad. Rika tried a quad Sal, Sherbakova tried all the quads, Trusova tried all of the quads.
And then some. I think she made up her own quad.
She did make up her own quad.
And many would injure themselves out of competition before they made it to Beijing.
覚えておいて練習でも4回転を入れていつも許可けで入れていったりとか。
Sambo 70 was not immune to such injuries. In fact, the camp was plagued by stress fractures, and many of its high-profile skaters were forced into early retirements due to chronic injuries.
Oh, tragic. I hope that's not the last, but I'm worried that may be the end for Daria Usachova. Not sure now what will happen for the talented young Russian.
That was Daria's last ever competition. She would become the 5th Eteri girl, forced into early retirement before they reached adulthood since 2017. Figure skating fans sardonically dubbed this trend the Eteri expiration date. But the critique did little to sway the loyalty of her skaters. Most of them continued competing despite being injured. Those who refused were ejected from the group.
Сломала сначала руку, а потом поехала на спартакиаду и сломала там ногу. То есть, а потом училась заново ходить, потом заново кататься, и у меня прыжки все растерялись. И поэтому иногда я приходила, у меня просто не садиться не могла, то есть гематомы были очень большие. Но я зато знаю то, что если я чего-то добьюсь в фигурном катании, то я тем самым помогаю своим родителям. То есть то, что это не пришло напрасно, все это.
Many suspect that malnourishment is a major contributor to these repeated injuries.
Загитова, ты чё?
Я на 500 похудела.
Вообще в нашем спорте играет роль, наверное, даже там 200-300 грамм.
Я, наверное, лет в 7 начала взвешиваться. Я знаю просто девочек, которые с 9 лет себя в чем-то ограничивают. У них там мамы следят, чтобы где-то какую-нибудь шоколадку все время стащишь. Что мне совершенно несложно, не по где-то вечером там 2-3 раза, и уже там вес приходит в норму. У меня был вес, которого я должна была придерживаться. На тот момент это было 42 килограмма.
42 при росте?
При росте 161 где-то.
Но это жестоко.
But none of this is really surprising, because Eteri has never been evasive about her dietary philosophy.
Знаете, я всегда говорю, что 1 грамм жира – это 1 грамм лени.
But since she had the full backing of the Russian Skating Federation and 5 girls who could be podium contenders, no one was truly indispensable, and all towed the line. By 2022, Sambo 70 was set for a podium sweep, even though the women's field boasted a technical arsenal that shattered the ceiling set by the previous Olympics. For comparisons, in 2018, 1 woman attempted the triple axel. In 2022, 7 attempted the component.
That was so disappointing.
Yet the 3 Russian skaters who had been selected for the Olympic team were the only ones attempting the quad jumps, and it would take a major upset for their closest competitor even to come close. And a major upset could only be a euphemism for what went down in February 2022 for Sambo 70 to lose its podium sweep. Valieva, freshly revealed to have tested positive for trimetazidine, had to underperform by 25 points from her season's lowest score for Japan's Kaori Sakamoto to win the bronze.
It was incredibly difficult to watch as this error-strewn performance on the ice on the biggest stage of all.
And you couldn't help but think you were watching the results of the abuse of a child.
There are thousands of athletes who have done it right and have stayed clean. This is a blow to them.
It felt like a stain on the history of figure skating in the Olympics.
Failure and misery are more prevalent in sports than we care to acknowledge, but this was torture on ice. Her coach, Eteri Tutberidze, asked, "Why did you let it go? Why did you stop fighting? Explain it to me, why?"
And so, with Valieva off the podium, the medal ceremony continued in a procession of tears. Kaori Sakamoto was the only medalist crying tears of joy. The winner, Anna Szczerbakova, sat in the corner by herself, as her coach struggled to rein in her 2 heartbroken teammates. Silver medalist Sasha Trusova had achieved her career best by competing in a jump layout more difficult than the male champion Nathan Chen's. But she was messy, and the judges were not ready to co-sign. Being on that podium would have felt like a coronation for any other athlete in the world, but because Trusova was trained in Russia.
Вот выиграл это первое место, все остальное уже всегда выигрывала. И всегда была такой же доброй.
And so, as a traumatized teenager would, she had a raw human moment right there at the medal ceremony. Her mascara ran down her masked face as she tried to shoo away the event volunteers and cameramen in Russian. When Eteri Tutberidze tried to console her, Trusova shouted that she hated her and that she never wanted to skate again. Russian figure skating is a fine microcosm of Russian culture because it is thoroughly campy. Most Russians could not be accused of feigning sophistication because they know it's about as stable a currency as NFTs. The Russian Empire had acquired all the crown jewels of sophistication: ballet, orchestra, literature, political philosophy, and how much international reverence. And the intellectuals starved like serfs when the empire imploded. Why bother pandering to the snobs in the free world who are far too bamboozled by culture to seize power for change? So why focus on refinement when you can have drama? Why focus on skating skills when you can jump, pantomime, and do costume changes? Why slowly mature as a skater and a performer when you can speedrun a whole sporting career in one Olympic cycle by breaking every record in the book before crashing and burning and becoming an influencer? Not everyone is born with talent. It takes time to cultivate and mature, time that is too often cut short due to injuries, burnout, and total demoralization.
Я лежу в операционной. Я успела поплакать, чуть-чуть попереживала. Но уже все хорошо. Потому что волшебный препарат начинает действовать. Я уже не чувствую. Вот только что мне зашили стопу. Всех подробностей раскрывать не буду, что мне там сделали.
The Olympics is, beyond athleticism, a civilization-wide exercise of honor. That sounds like a total diatribe, but every Olympic game involves over 200 countries, cooperating under the same set of rules and conditions. Something that is impossible for humanity in every other arena of cultural exchange.
The delegations of the Korean Olympic Committee and the Olympic Committee of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, marching together as Korea.
The stakes and rewards are symbolic, and if one can't even be trusted to show honor in a game, they certainly can't be honorable outside of it. Besides, figure skating was never meant to be a jumping competition. And Valieva herself best encapsulates the magic of the art form in her program, Girl on the Ball, inspired by the Picasso painting. Set to Spiegel, Im Spiegel, she circles lithely around the ice, referencing the smiling little girl balanced atop a ball amidst a circus, like a scene from a transient dream. Girls around the world begin training as young as 3 to have a shot at delighting the world the way Valieva once did. Not just by rotating mid-air, but to tell a story, invoke a memory, and to embody the impossibility that is perfection. So why are literal children chasing technical breakthroughs at the expense of an endemic of injuries and eating disorders on an international scale? Can the untrained eye even tell a triple from a quad? On the flip side, a popular blood sport provides prime source material for creative propagandists in dystopian societies, fictional and real. Russian dominance confirms the superiority of the Russian bodies, the Russian grit, justifying brutal means with glorious ends.
Please raise for the national anthem of the champion.
Before the invasion, the success of Russians in sports helped signal strength to able-bodied men bound for the trenches. And when they're gone, the continuation of sports at home helps maintain an illusion of normalcy against a backdrop of political turmoil. And so Valieva went home and continued skating, even though Russia would be banned from international sports for violating the Olympic truce, and as if the legal proceedings would not inevitably lead to her suspension anyway. The Russian Skating Federation even scheduled its events on the same days as the International Grand Prix. When NATO first struck with their sanctions, some people predicted that the Russian economy would fall, except it didn't. Russians simply kept on struggling. They were denied visas to most countries in Europe, but if you really had money, paradise continued in Dubai or the Maldives. For those trapped at home, you can still come to an ice show hosted by Olympic gold medalist Tatyana Navka. She's married to Putin's best friend and spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov. You can also go to a show by Plushenko, whose love for Putin is as well publicized as it is subsidized. But look at the smile of our champion. Look at them in their nice apartments, on their nice vacations. Do they look abused? Would they themselves not gladly vouch for their gratitude towards the institutions that made them rich and famous? And if you thought that there would be a reckoning coming for Eteri Tutberidze just because her underage student tested positive for banned substances at the Olympics, you're adorably naive. Eteri could never have girl-bossed this close to the sun had she not been part of a powerful organization that paid a lot of people's pensions. Plus, she couldn't have accomplished what she did all by herself, and we'll get to her entourage later. But if the Russian Skating Federation wanted to throw her under the bus, they'd have to admit that all these years of victories and technical breakthroughs were nothing but a popular scam designed to distract the cheering audience, so the abusers were free to leech off the broken backs of teenage girls. And so all kinds of absurdist excuses were floated to the public. Valieva drank from her grandpa's water cup. She was given a strawberry dessert that traveled with her from Moscow to St. Petersburg. It could have been a jealous rival, a saboteur, her dog even. Or she was innocent all along, and it was all a conspiracy cooked up by those jealous American flops who rigged the game to steal the gold. By the time the Court of Arbitration for Sports has handed Valieva the guilty verdict, 2 new ice rinks have already been constructed in Moscow, both as an expansion to Eteri's Krystalny Ice Palace. And she even had the time to appear in a new weight loss reality TV show named Big Girls. After Valieva and Valieva alone was disciplined with an essentially career-ending 4-year ban, the World Anti-Doping Organization made the sweet gesture of calling on countries to pass laws criminalizing the doping of minors. And that is as far as the inquest into Eteri will go. No way is Putin allowing another investigation into systemic doping in the middle of his war. Plus, Russian citizens are becoming increasingly aware of a new disease called sudden death syndrome, and it's known to be especially lethal to pesky whistleblowers. It will be a long, bloody time before this world settles its ongoing dispute over the definition of child abuse, and the doping of minors is unfortunately not the most urgent topic in its resolution. Dishonor is a universal human experience. Any atrocity, once packaged into a mundane, well-paying job, is bound to be done by someone without a second thought or apology. Putin is not the first despot to use the Olympics for political messaging, and he likely won't be the last. But he couldn't even wait a week for the Olympic truce to expire before he began his special operation, which resulted in Russian athletes being banned from most international competitions. On February 24, 2022, he marched his nation onto a path of no return. It was also Eteri Tutberidze's birthday, ironically. Mother Russia is rich in ironies. Philip Shvetsky is a Renaissance man. He's an anesthesiologist by training, a sports medicine doctor by practice, and a pioneer in the athletic use of xenon, a noble gas with euphoric and performance-enhancing effects, and a tight 40-hour detection window. He's also a published author and a radical thinker whose latest philosophical treatise, A Doctor Who Studies Philosophy as Equal to the Gods, has proved a resounding success amongst messianic sociopaths, moonlighting as medical practitioners. Before accompanying Valieva on her Olympic misadventure, he was employed with Russia's Federal and Medical Biological Agency, which had an office conveniently located at Sambo 70, where he safeguarded the health of Russia's most beloved child athlete by concocting a pharmaceutical cocktail consisting of more than 50 supplements and medications. Life is one long jump from the vagina to the grave, his Instagram bio reads, because he is a Dostoevskian villain in his Reputation era, and the main character in the next chapter of this whimsical catastrophe of a story. Kins is a storytelling platform dedicated to the production of video essays and documentaries investigating social narratives and political messaging in news and popular media. If you've enjoyed our content thus far, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Sign up for the mailing list to be notified when we release the next episode. The link is in the description.